And we are now ready to bounce back to the 8th Annual Cybersecurity Summit 2021 after the tea break. And as you're all aware, now we are ready to start the panel discussion. And for the panel, I would like to invite the panelists. The very first panelist we have for the session 1 on banking, payments and settlements and digital currencies, we have Mr. Akash Degvekar, the Senior Director, Corporate Strategy at Visa Asia Pacific, joining with us virtually. And next, I would like to invite Director, Sri Lanka CERT, and General Counsel for ICTA, Mr. Jayantha Fernando, who was the speaker for us this morning. And the rest of the panelists, I would like to invite them with their introductions. So I would now like to invite the Assistant Governor, Central Bank of Sri Lanka, D. Kumaratunga. In introducing him, he has more than 30 years experience and has worked in several departments in different positions, including payment and settlements, economic research, and information technology departments. He works as country director of the SARC Payment Council and alternate country director of Sri Lanka in Asian Clearing Union, board member of Lanka Financial Services Bureau Limited, board member of National Institute of Business Management, Secretary of the National Payment Council, which is the highest decision-making body of the payment system of Sri Lanka. I invite Mr. D. Kumaratunga also to take your seat at the panel, and I also invite Mr. Jayantha Fernando to take your seat at the panel. And next, I would like to invite Mr. Deepal Akuretiyagama, the Chief Operating Officer, NDB Bank. Prior to joining NDB, he served as Senior Vice President, Head of Operations at HSBC Philippines, Sri Lanka, Japan, and Indonesia. In addition, he was attached to HSBC Hong Kong Regional Office and project managed one of the largest organizational effectiveness programs of HSBC Group and provided leadership to many other group and regional projects. He served as the lead subject matter expert of the HSBC Regional Account Reconciliation Project for 18 countries. He has been instrumental in designing the HSBC Global e-Statements project as well. He has held the position of Chief Information Officer, HSBC Sri Lanka and Maldives. And now I kindly invite Mr. Deepal Akuretiyagama to take your seat at the panel. Can we all give a good round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? And next up, I would like to invite the next panelist, Ms. Avanti Kolumbage, the Country Manager, Sri Lanka and Maldives for Visa. Avanti has joined Visa in 2017 and has been responsible for client relationships and driving business growth for Visa and its clients. In her client relationship role at Visa, Avanti has been instrumental in managing various long-term clients of Visa and in forging new partnerships, driving new payment flows, and engaging with fintechs across the market. She was also appointed by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka as a member of the Open Banking Working Committee for 2020-2021 to create a collaborative framework for sharing open data. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as I invite Ms. Avanti Kolumbage to take her seat at the panel. And next panelist, I would like to invite Mr. Loshan Vikramasekara, the Manager, FinCERT from Lanka Clear. Carrying over 10 years of experience in the cybersecurity domain, currently heading the financial sector computer security incident response team, assisting all banks and financial companies to equip themselves with a strong cybersecurity posture, Loshan has built his career in cybersecurity by working his way through different cybersecurity domains such as governance, risk, compliance, technical and development areas. And he is also equally equipped with academic and professional qualifications such as MSc Information Security, CDPSC, CRISC, CISM, CISA, EJPT, AWSSAA, CEH, and CSA certifications. He is a significant knowledge provider to the cybersecurity domain and also serves as the secretary of the CICRA Sri Lanka chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as I invite Mr. Loshan Vikramasekara to join the panel discussion. With that, I now invite the moderator to take over the panel discussion. I invite the CEO of Daily FT, Mr. Nistar Kazim, as the moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to the panelists today. Over to you, Nistar.
Thank you very much. We had an excellent session, morning session. So I'm planning to make it interactive. As I said in the morning, I have questions, but I want the audience to engage with these experts. For those who have been to the annual Cybersecurity Summit, you have noticed something very refreshing. No offense, but I see more women participation today. Thank you very much. It's a very encouraging sign. So I hope it will be more dynamic this time in terms of a panel discussion. I'll pose some questions, but then I'll throw it open to the audience as well in terms of, we had Jayantha Fernando highlighting a lot, so I'm sure a lot of questions will be there from the audience. What I'll do is ask our Assistant Governor from the Central Bank to talk about some of the latest plans and developments in digital payments landscape in Sri Lanka, because we discussed a lot on that. I know it's early days, so we need to get that way forward right, and I'm sure this will be another engagement of public discussion on the way forward. So, Mr. Kumartunga, maybe you can give some initial remarks on how is the landscape evolving.
So good morning to all, and thank you very much for inviting for the session. And I think last few years, 4 years time, so we have made some of the innovative agendas for the payment system landscape. And with the development of the other countries, so we also thought to go in with the other countries' development. And so I have not prepared for the presentation, but after I listened to the other presentation, and this is not prepared for this audience, but I thought that to have the presentation, then it is easy for the audience to get some of the norms and the questions, and what we have done so far from the central bank side. So there are many initiatives which I have taken last 4 years, because I have taken Payment and Settlement Department 2016. Then after that, I have done some research with the other countries' development, and with that, and also the development with the region and developed countries. So we also thought to have a kind of new initiatives. The first thing which I have developed and looking is that a blockchain-based shared KYC. So already proof of concept has completed in June, and so this is the, I think this is a requirement from the customers and also from the all the financial institutions. So we run this POC free of charge, and 40 companies as we call for the EOI, and 40 companies, so they apply for the development of the POC for the free of charge, and out of that 17 from the foreign countries, and we selected 3 companies, 2 from the local and 1 from the foreign company, and it was done successfully. 12 banks join with this proof of concept initiative, and the report has submitted to the governor, and next step is that implementation. That's the most hardest part, and so with that we are trying to find the place to keep these the main the body or the servers and other I think infrastructure for this one. Most probably we may be able to finish this project to 2022. So in addition to that, we also appoint the committee to look after this virtual currency transaction. So the first committee we have appointed in 2018, and that committee report has submitted. And after that again, including the Mr. Jayantha Fernando, he is also the co-chair of this new virtual currency committee appointed in 2021, and already the draft report has submitted to the Deputy Governor, and we are looking on that for the recommendation they have given in the report. So digital banking framework, so which I have identified in the early stage, and we have done the research with the other countries, and most of the other countries, Hong Kong, Malaysia, is pioneer on these initiatives. Then so we again appoint the committee, and already we have submitted the report to the governor and also digital minister. And most probably we want to make some changes for the Act, Bank Supervision Act, then Banking Act, then also we need the Data Protection Act to implement this initiative. So we are looking forward to initiate this agenda for the digital banking, because Ministry is also very keen to implement digital banking in Sri Lanka. So in addition to that, CBDC we have started in 2017. The first report we have submitted to the governor 2017 with the recommendation, and again I have appointed another committee recently, 2021, and that report also submitted at present and with the recommendation. So we have identified with the other countries' development, we also want to go with the CBDC, and with the development with the other cryptocurrencies in the market, I think this may be the good solution for the country. And India is also, I think recently they are going with the CBDC, and China already gone and testing that one. And Bahama is also, I think, already done. So we are also looking, as I think earlier today morning session, I think the visa official said, Vikas, right? He said that 80%, 86% of the central banks are researching and 60% are doing the POC. So we are also ready to go for that, but only problem we are looking is that changing of this MLA, Martial Law Act. So with that, we may be able to look how it will impact. So in addition to that, we have seen that many unofficial channels are there for sending money through various channels, unofficial channel, and informal sector is, I think, growing fast. To bring into the formal sector, we got the monetary board approval, money value transfer services. They have to register after we introduce this regulation, after finance minister signed the regulation of the Gazette. Then of course we are going to publish, announce this one in the newspapers, and all the money service providers, they have to register with the central bank. So we will give the capital requirement on that, minimum capital requirement. With that, we are going to monitor all these things. And AI technology is also, I think, moving fast in the everywhere. Some banks already, when I talk with the banking, and Deepal is also here, and many institutions of the banking institutions are already using some of the part of this AI. So for this one, we also appoint the committee, and the committee report already submitted to the high management of management, and we'll be able to implement this one with the regulatory part. In addition to that, PSSA is established, or I think launched in 2005, but it is, I think, a good initiative at that time. But with the new development, we are thinking of amending the PSSA, Payment and Settlement Act, and we are getting World Bank assistance to make these changes. Sri Lanka Transit Card, early stage, I have appointed the committee in 2019, and they have given the features and the recommendation, how it will impact, or how it is moving towards the Sri Lankan arena. Then already we have informed to the Lanka Clear and other relevant financial institution to implement this transit card, and at present it is in the, I think, final stage, and one bank is working on that, and other two banks also want to, I think, link with the national transit card, and some of the other parties also interested to join with this one. Sri Lanka Remit, it has recently changed Lanka Remit, and this is a new initiative we are going to take. What we have seen is that when you getting the money to the Sri Lanka I think there are some problems sending the money. The main problem is that higher cost for sending the money. Then we decided to have the separate app for this one, common app, national app. So this is called the Sri Lanka Remit, and so within next few months time we will be able to implement this one. Open banking framework, I think Avanti is also in the committee, and more than 20 members from the banking sector. Deepal is also in the committee, open banking framework, and some of the other banks also in the committee. Then they already submitted the report in June 2021. And now what I want to do is that getting a relevant approval from the top management and getting some assistance from the other country or the advice. We have to appoint the advisor for this one, and implementation is need to be done for Sri Lanka. So this is also a requirement for in coming years, and I think with the development in the other countries, it is a requirement. So I don't know to touch this one. Multi-currency RTG system is also the new initiative, because now our RTG system is more than 17 years old. We started 2007. Then I have decided to change or upgrade the RTG system, existing RTG system, with compatible with ISO 20022 standard. So with that, MCRTGs is a new development, and so this will transaction will take place for the foreign currency and the domestic foreign currency market. At present, most of these banks, commercial banks, have the separate account in the US or any other country. To deal with the USA, it is to deal with this USD, then it is each and every bank has a separate account in the USA bank. Then after we implement in this one, only one account can be maintained from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Then other financial institution can link with the central bank. And most of the other regional countries, they are not operating this one, especially Malaysia is doing the partly, and India is not doing, and Pakistan is not thinking at present. Few other developed countries are using, especially Hong Kong and Malaysia is engaged in this one. So digital payment platform is also another initiative we are looking, and so they have submitted the report, and there are many developments need to be take place. So this is a seamless payment system from the mobile to any other devices or mobile to any other platform. So this is what we are thinking on this one, but this is depend on the I think approval from the top management. So Lanka QR initiative, which we have taken and launched in 2018, and we have seen that most of these banks are not joining with this. So therefore we have mandated in 2021 September. Then all the banks now join, and merchant discount rate is 0.5%. Normally other, I think we know that for the other card, when you're using the other card with the first machine, it is 2 to 3.5%. But at present, we are looking for keeping this 0.5% in next few years also. And recently, in this Saturday, last Saturday, we launched this one in toll gates also. And next step is that implementing for the traffic fine system. Already discussions are going on with the Defense Ministry and Transport Ministry, and all the three ministries are working with the central bank. So I think near future for the traffic fine, we may able to use of this Lanka QR. And in addition to that, I am also planning to link this Lanka QR with the SG QR, Singapore QR. So if it is possible, because we use the EMV core standard for this one, then we want to get the discussion with the mass authority in Singapore. And at present, I am having the discussion with the embassy in Singapore. Then they willing to support us. So those are the major initiatives which I have taken. Sorry for taking more time for this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumartunga. Interesting insights following up to Visa's presentation. Akash, are you online? I have a question, follow-up question to some of the things that you highlighted. Hi, Akash.
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
Hello.
Just before I open it up for the audience to ask any questions on with regard to your presentation, I know it's early stages, but when do you see CBDC going mainstream? That's question number one. And if and when it does, would the attractiveness and the craze for Bitcoin diminish?
Yeah, thank you. No, both great questions. Let me take them in turn. So I think on the question about when do we see CBDC going mainstream, I think it's important to reiterate what I said during the course of my presentation, which is, we certainly don't believe that there is a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to CBDC, right? There is obviously a lot of momentum today, and obviously a lot of central banks are considering CBDC, but there is, also a sense of perhaps we have to be looking into it because everybody else is looking into it. And our point of view would be that CBDC only needs to be introduced if it's the right thing to do for any given economy, right? And so considering the existing payment infrastructure, existing status of RTP systems, existing kind of infrastructure in the country, I think each policymaker, each regulator, I'm sure this is, no doubt what is on the assistant governor's mind as well. It's going to have to be a very sort of custom-made, tailored solution. And what type of CBDC to introduce in every market is also going to be a pretty individualized decision. So it's hard to have a broad strokes answer to saying, when do we expect it to become mainstream? I think we would see some countries that are at the front end of the spectrum and others that may not ever need a CBDC. But maybe to try and attempt to answer that question, I would say it's quite possible that in the next sort of 5 to 7 years, we would expect that a number of economies in the Asia-Pacific region would have some degree of a CBDC, whether a wholesale or a retail CBDC. Does that answer the first part of your question?
Yeah, thanks. Can you answer the second one? Or, you were not audible for me. Yeah.
So the second part of the question. Again, I think in our view, I won't comment on the sort of right answer and the demand associated with Bitcoin and so on. Ultimately, in our view, as I said before, it is less of a payment mechanism and more of an asset class, right? So we don't really see people making payments with Bitcoin or paying for goods and services and using cryptocurrency. People are using Bitcoin today to essentially keep a part of their net worth in Bitcoin, right? It's an asset class. It's a highly volatile digital gold of sorts. And so even though they get put on the same page, and I put them on the same page when we said here's crypto and here's CBDC, what consumers are actually using them for is quite distinct. And so it's hard to make a definitive statement about whether CBDC will upend the demand for Bitcoin, because what consumers are using them for today is quite different things. And so we would expect that the answer is probably, again, quite different from market to market. And if anything, regulatory intervention will probably have a much bigger impact on private digital currencies than consumer demand, because so far consumer demand has only gone, in one direction.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any questions? I don't want to keep Akash on hold for so long, but maybe the audience can have any specific crypto questions to ask Akash. Anything technical in terms of what's in store? Who likes to take the first opportunity? We have some roving mics in the audience. Anybody? Okay, it's too early, I guess. Okay, I'll come back to Akash again, but just Kumartunga, you spoke about various payments. Given the reality that we'll move towards a CBDC, you think some of your initiatives are, will be able to, embrace the future, because you're talking about new payment, upgrading all the settlement systems and all that. Is the framework inclusive of CBDC? I know you said 2017 you came with a paper, now to 2021. You see more enthusiasm towards that locally?
I think so. When you are, check with the other countries' development, especially in the China CBDC environment, and this is totally relating to the QR also. That if we are using the QR payment in most of our region or most of our the areas in not only the city area but other places, then of course it is easy for us to implement that one. The first thing is that financial inclusion. and also digital adoption of the country. So if it is increasing, then of course it is easy for us to develop and bring these products to the market. And so however, we cannot stay till this 100% is completed. What I done is earlier also that, for example, when you are implementing this mandating SMS for transaction for our customers, there are, I think, a huge debate is gone for these mandating SMS. So I think most of the idea coming from the bankers also, the each and every person, customers, they don't have the phone. Then, but we cannot wait till 100% is completed in the society. Then we have to start somewhere. Then of course we can move forward with the other countries' development. Early stage, actually we are linked with the ITU, International Telecommunication Union. So when the China start in CBDC 2016-17, then I was also in the first meeting with them and with my team. And at that time, so up to now, we are having weekly meeting with them, ITU. And most cases, most of the countries are 180 countries at the beginning, they joined the ITU to develop this CBDC. And with the current situation, we have to start somewhere. Then my idea is that, my personal idea is that, so without delay, so we want to work on that and go in with this CBDC.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience? Yes, thank you.
It's a very good session. My question is how inflation affect to this digital currency? How it affect to the different countries? Inflation rates are different, and how it affect to the digital currency? Could you please elaborate us?
Thank you very much for that first question for the day.
I think Vikash also can have the more experience on that one. Before implementing this one, this is especially we want to link with this monetary policy. So how it is impact for the money supply. Then of course the demand side of the inflation is linked with this inflation. Not only supply side, because supply side we cannot make any changes on that one. At present is also the mainly impact for the inflation is that the supply side. Then if it is a demand side, the money supply is also linked with this CBDC environment. Maybe that Vikash having some more experience on that. And so anyway, for this ITU union is also discussing on this one, how it will impact for not only inflation, how monetary policy will change. Monetary policy mechanism, how it will impact for the monetary policy mechanism. That is what we want to look, not only one scenario, there are many other aspects for the exchange rate and interest rate and also the inflation. Those things we have to look carefully. And for this one, I am planning to appoint the internal working committee on this one before implementing. And if you are running with the POC, then of course we may able to get some input from the other countries and the POC developers. Thank you.
Excellent. Good question. And also Akash, any insights from you?
Yeah, thank you. And I completely agree with the Assistant Governor. I think obviously there's a lot of implications when it comes to introducing a CBDC in any given economy. So I think the question was specifically around inflation. And I think the inflation answer is essentially, as the Assistant Governor said, fundamentally any CBDC would be what we would think of as M0, right? It's equivalent to cash and notes and so on. So introducing a CBDC is ultimately an expansion of the monetary base, and it could replace some existing cash, or it could be net new additions to the monetary base. So that could have an inflationary effect in the short term as you're increasing money supply, but that's probably more, fairly manageable in the larger scheme of things. But as the Assistant Governor was pointing out, some of the bigger implications are actually on things such as, credit creation, right? If you have CBDC and it fundamentally becomes a new safe asset that consumers assume and should assume is backed by the central bank, do they start to move money from bank deposits, as they have today, to central bank digital currency and store their sort of savings in CBDC instead of bank deposits? And if they do, what does that do for bank sources of funding and credit creation going forward? I think these are some of the big questions that central banks around the world are considering. So it sounds like the CBSL is considering as well, and those are really critical to have a firm position on before the introduction of a CBDC, because that the potentially ease of a better payment mechanism might lead to unwanted effects in terms of financial stability and so on in other parts of the macroeconomy.
Thank you. Any questions there from the? Okay.
Yes, hello. I had a question. Does Sri Lanka Central Bank have any plans in the future to hold Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrencies in their foreign reserves?
At present, we are neutral on that because we are not saying you can do it or you cannot do it, because the existing regulation is not covered this area. Then, so we have to make some amendments, or there will be some legislation on this area. So that is what mainly China and India is working, because most of the other cryptocurrencies are in the market, then it will get some more implication to the stability of the financial system stability. Then, so that is what mainly other countries are looking. And we cannot say we are allowed or not, and we are neutral in this stage. And but the Foreign Exchange Department has issued the regulation. You cannot use your credit card to deal with these crypto type currencies.
Any more concerns on cryptos? Interesting observations, yeah. At the front here.
Hi. Hi. So if central bank is currently neutral, and if central bank decides that central bank is going negative on that, what will happen to the current cryptocurrency holders?
So neutral mean that there is no any proper legislation to cover this area. That is what. So if we are having the proper legislation, then of course we can act or we can announce that one. At present, what we are announcing is that two press releases done in the last year and 2018. Then what we have informed to the audience or the customer of our nation is that there is a huge risk on that one. Because early stage of the last year, it is a Bitcoin, for example, if it is a 5,000, now it is 65,000. So it is a huge price fluctuations is there. Then of course, the finally, when someone is failing, then of course it is come to the central bank. So if it is smoothly going, there's no problem. Then of course we are also okay. But problem is that something happened or the market is clashed. Then finally that impact or the I think questions are raised from the central bank, what we are doing and so on. So therefore that is a major reason we have appointed the committee, including Attorney General Department and Jayant is also there. Then we want to get some legal background and the legal environment to for the final report. And I think after submitting this report, now we are looking on this report and want to make some recommendation they have made and announce to the public.
Okay, thank you. So does that mean that it will be legalized at one point and crypto will be accepted form of currency in Sri Lanka?
At present, I cannot say anything. I have gone through the report anyway. So with that report, I may not be able to announce anything which I have included in the report at present. So maybe as an asset base, you may able to, but not confirm it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Kumantunga, other thing is based on the cryptocurrency, there is an industry is happening. There are so many consumer goods are trading. So what will happen to that industry? Because ultimately, sometimes these funds are ultimately coming to the bank also. So we are facing a huge challenge with regard to finally when it's coming to the banking industry. So whether we are having any legal framework for that or we continue as a neutral position.
I think Ministry of Digital, Minister, I think the State Minister of Digital is also announcing something, and he's also working with the, I think, legal entities, a few legal entities to legalize or not. I think it's still that AG office is also looking on this matter, and we directly wrote to the AG office with the getting some clarification on this one. So until we get from AG's office, we may not be able to do anything. What's the second part?
Mr. Kumatunga, now what will happen? The currency dealing is one side and also backed by the trade, or in the sense there are so many goods trade using the cryptocurrency. So finally what will happen, these people who are in Sri Lanka, the smaller time players, they will try to deposit the income based on the cryptocurrency or the trade. So finally at that point only that will come into the banking sector or the regulatory area. So where it's a kind of a debate situation whether we should encourage this or whether we should discourage this.
So if you go through our press releases, 2 press releases, so once you read that one, it is discouraging.
Yeah, I think publicly few companies have openly advertised for transactions. It's not legal. So this is the question is, if someone is engaged in illegal trade, should the banks recognize them, or should the central bank take action? I think the central bank response was that inform the public it's not legal. So there is a gray area.
I personally contact these 2 officials that officially they have announced, but they are saying they are not dealing now.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Any more? Yeah, yes.
So my question is directed towards the Assistant Governor as well as Jayanta. I suppose the visa official also can give his thoughts and observations as well. We have a situation where China and now India is also considering banning crypto. Like the gentleman previously mentioned, there are certain industries built around crypto and these currencies, especially crypto exchanges. What is the thought of the central bank in terms of a guideline, Jayanta in terms of legal, Visa in terms of the global observations on allowing some of these exchanges to set up shop in Sri Lanka or to operate in Sri Lanka within a certain guideline or framework?
So both of us are in the expert committee appointed by the minister, and we are working on that one.
Yeah.
And one side, I am as a regulator, I am representing that committee, and the other side, that getting developments or the implementation of some regulations. We're also discussing at the committee, but so without announcing the committee report, we may not be able to announce anything, but up to Jayanta to say something.
Can I add to that, Nishta? Yeah, go ahead. So I'm also similarly gagged, but I think we might be able to exercise some discretion on expressing some views. And I think I mentioned this at the outset of the fairly lengthy presentation I gave in the morning, where we said that the policymakers are looking at choices, and hearing the 2 or 3 specific questions about potentially onboarding ongoing activities. For example, we have seen in the startup ecosystem, NFT related auctions have happened. So the question is, are there crypto assets with those startup entrepreneurs that can be formally brought into our financial ecosystem, and in a manner that the country will eventually benefit? So in that context, I think what is noteworthy is that there are much better experts than myself on the subject. Of course, Mr. Kumaratunga and the team that PSD at Central Bank, there are experts there. Then there are experts at the Securities and Exchange Commission, and at the Colombo Stock Exchange, there are a number of people who have worked in foreign exchanges that have run virtual currency models and seeing options. The bottom line is that we are losing time Nishtha, on this subject. Sooner the policymakers ramp up their effort to amend, for example, the fairly archaic Monetary Law to set the tone, and maybe the Payment and Settlement Systems Act, which is quite modern in Sri Lanka, needs to be tweaked around a little bit so that various asset classes can be recognized. But Nishtha, one point, I think, since you all are all specialists here in the panel in the financial business ecosystem, you may like to think before we plunge ourselves into any of these options, whether to formally recognize crypto or have a stable coin or maybe a CBDC approach first and then move in the other direction. I think there is a need to possibly look at the financial benefits accruing from the approaches that the policymakers may like to take. Do we create a set of virtual asset classes with an exchange, which would mean that we have a separate law for that, enabling both central bank and SCC to jointly regulate and manage that exchange? So do we do that? Do we perhaps, if we are taking that approach, are we going to limit it to holders of foreign exchange? Is it only going to be for foreign nationals within the zone of the port city, perhaps as a pilot? So these are the considerations, I think, quite rightly pointed out earlier by the speakers that we are looking at. And it is, I think, an important fact. I believe that an economic impact assessment may have to be done to understand the financial benefit before we tread on the options that ought to be taken. That is my personal view, Nishtha.
Thanks. Excellent. Akash, you want to chip in?
Sure, thank you, Nishtha. I mean, only to say, I think, I certainly agree with the comments made, and in particular with Mr. Fernando. I think, as a company, we obviously are strong advocates of interoperability as well as innovation in payments. But at the same time, as I've said repeatedly, ultimately this needs to be a policy decision that is made respecting the conditions in the market. So in particular in Sri Lanka, and it sounds like it's under deep consideration at the CBSL. So I wouldn't presume to say there should be private sector digital currencies that are permitted or not, as it's already under consideration. But maybe I can just bring in Avanti and to answer that question from a Sri Lanka payments perspective as well.
Thank you. Before moving on to security aspects, any more questions on? Yes. Yeah, I have got two. Yes.
Hi. I want to know, we're talking about cryptocurrency, which isn't illegal in Sri Lanka, but why isn't PayPal fully operative in Sri Lanka? Because compared to our regional peers, where I think Sri Lankans are losing out because of this.
Okay, thank you. PayPal, the question.
So I think last 13 years, we are Central Bank of Sri Lanka and the government is also working and having the discussion with the PayPal, and especially a receiving facility. Outgoing facility is already there, but we are trying to make this facility as early as possible to Sri Lanka. But at present, we cannot say anything. I think announcement cannot be made because we don't know the timeline. It depends on the PayPal. So in our case, they already having some kind of discussion last few years, and in some cases, directly I am dealing with the WhatsApp messages. But I think in the next few months, we cannot think on that, and we are positively working with the PayPal.
Hope that answer is fine. There's one question here.
Thank you. So my question is to Mr. Jayanath and Mr. Kumartunga. The topic on crypto is like a buzz all over. Everyone is talking about it. And it's a public truth that lot maybe in this room has already invested in crypto. And it's their own risk that they are taking to make some money out of it. And I feel the buying power of crypto holders are more. And as a country, we should embrace that and look at opportunities to bring that funds back into Sri Lanka. Right now, it's in the cloud. It has to come into the banking network. First step, I think, if you all can take a look at in the committee, to immediately get a payment, and I am from the payment industry, so do a crypto transaction, maybe a foreign customer wants to pay a merchant here, and directly convert that transaction into fiat and get it deposited in the bank account. I would suggest that would be the best step to take first to encourage crypto, and maybe that will have more control from a regulator perspective to look at the next step on introducing a wallet or any other. So my view, I want to see what are the views of the regulators and the policymakers in this comment.
So I have practically tested this one actually. So I have seen this one and not dealing anything, but I have gone through the practical situation how it is happened. So it is dealing with the Sri Lanka rupees. Then so that is also some ideas are there. Then with this development of this, I think legislation, then of course we may be able to think on that one. So the minister also want to implement as soon as possible. Yes or no? So that is what in our status.
Yeah.
Can I add to that, Krishna? I think I thank the learned gentleman for that question, because that seems to be the mood, not only around this room, but amongst the startup ecosystem in the country. The sooner we onboard and regularize this informal business, the better. Yeah, I mean, that's my personal view, Nishta, not the view of any institutions that I represent. I just heard in Bloomberg yesterday or last night that, for example, in Thailand, which has lost nearly 80 billion in revenue due to the pandemic in their tourism industry, they have taken, that tourism authority has taken a decision last week to work and expedite the nation's regulations so that crypto minted millionaires can come and enjoy tourism in that country. So I think that example speaks much to the sentiments in the room, and hope the policymakers consider that in a timely manner. Thanks.
One final question on crypto. Maybe we'll do a separate session later on. It appears that there is, I don't know, from a journalistic perspective, I see there is an early move advantage being created right now because of this uncertainty, and it seems that it might become legal tender going forward. So you have already created an asset class unrecognized so far in the country. So that's it. Any final question on crypto? Okay, Akash, this is for you. I'm looking at the CBDC. Is it really risk-free from a vulnerability concern?
Yeah. So when I said risk-free before, I meant more in a monetary policy sense, in that it is obviously, one-to-one commensurate with fiat currency. So to the extent that citizens trust the central bank, it should be immaterial to them whether it's issued as a cash fiat type currency or a digital token. But I think your question is a little bit more from a security standpoint, and I think that's an absolutely essential part of the infrastructure associated with developing a CBDC. Is going to have to take that into consideration and build in the safeguards for protection of these digital tokens. At the end of the day, these are digital tokens that are sitting in consumers' bank accounts. It's a bearer asset, just the same way that if a thief entered my house and took away a suitcase of cash that I had, and if it's lost, it's lost. There's no recourse. CBDC can have that kind of effect as well. So there need to be mitigants at a technical level, and also, you know, AML and CFT concerns are inherently part of the design of CBDC systems around the world. So I think that these are all issues that are under very close consideration when it comes to the security and the infrastructure required, because it's not just the central bank, it's all of the commercial banking institutions that are going to have to beef up their systems in order to be able to handle these digital assets in a way that inspires confidence in the public.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Akash, for that clarification. I'll move on to the rest of the panelists. Sorry to have kept you waiting. We went on a Bitcoin journey here. I'll move on to Loshan. In terms of, can you sort of tell what are the main risks in the financial sector? I know you sort of deal with it day to day without statistics, but what in your, can you flag off some of the main risks with regard to cybersecurity?
Well, so I have to be the devil's advocate at the moment because everyone is like very hyped with the new technologies announcements, and so let's forget about what is financial sector. We are all talking about technology, and perfect examples nowadays are like the few months back there was a oil pipeline attack in US where there were like a lot of the pipeline was attacked, and there were like for the restarting it took about like 2 weeks, and there was Ukraine power grid attack which again took about like weeks to power on back and get the entire platform again back to normal. So we are talking about technology, and at the moment it is very complex, and even today you might witness like many technologies that we today talk about are actually existed many years back. Actually, Jayanta and a few others were talking about it, like it was there for a long time. And we are trying to today talk about, today implement a technology that was developed about like years back. You take Windows, Linux, any OS, that's like way back, and still we are developing on those things. So vulnerabilities exist, and there are two types of vulnerabilities. One that is known, what is unknown. So known also, there are like, you call it 0 days, where you just get to know about the vulnerability and vendors have not issued a patch. And where again there is another category on that, where patch is there, but technology, again, like because of various systems that most companies use, you can't go ahead and implement that patch again there itself. So it takes time. And then there are vulnerabilities that is unknown. So something that unknown, we got to know suddenly, that was like NSA was developing this eternal blue vulnerability that made a chaos within like few days with WannaCry incident. So these are like technological advancements, and with the AI. Also now, the attackers are also using AI, and it is evading a lot of controls that we put in place. And also, a new development is like supply chain attack. That is like whatever the tools, technologies that you are using to safeguard or monitor your infrastructure, or else the platform or the technologies that you are developing on, they are built with pre-configured, or else someone has already hacked them and planted a backdoor, and you are implementing that in your systems and making them available for the attackers to come freely inside to your organizations and attack you. And for examples like Microsoft, DoD in USA, these all were attacked because of those things. So technology is really good. That is what keeps us driving. But at the same time, just as the regulatory boundaries that as countries we are looking into, we also have to like look into the like security perspective, security by design, security, privacy by design. So those things have to adopt from the beginning itself. So that's the risk that we have to deal with.
Okay. Excellent. Do you see any limitations in Sri Lanka? I mean, where do you see the problem? Is it a mindset, or is it an attitude, or is it lack of knowledge, or general lack of responsiveness?
Well, okay, so I see three things. One is delusional security. So it's also called as like false sense of security, where people come and say, okay, we are ISO 27001 compliant, we are PCI DSS compliant, we have this technology, we have that technology, we have SIEM in place, and so on and so forth. But the problem is, are they really configured properly? Are they actually relevant to your organization infrastructure? Is your infrastructure accurately analyzed before you purchasing these things? So, and I have seen a lot. It's not just common to hear. I've witnessed in foreign countries as well. So the board gets to hear, okay, so you have to buy this in order to mitigate this sort of attacks coming in. And also most hype comes whenever there is a publicly known attack there is. And to be honest, Sri Lanka has not identified. Why I say identified, it's like there may be attacks that could have happened and we couldn't know because we don't have that sort of detection infrastructure. And second one is the lack of practical exposure. So because of these attacks, we have like not detected, or else we are not aware of it, or else we don't have that sort of a practical exposure in any company in a large scale. Whenever even there is an incident, we see a lot of security people doesn't have the practical knowledge to analyze and identify and put it together in a way that it's not the same mistakes are again play. So this kind of practical exposure is limited. And thirdly, today you are trying to implement a patch for a solution, and it might take for you to research, analyze, and all that would take about like a week or maybe months. But by the time you're coming and implement it, the versions have already gone up. Maybe the OSs have also changed, or else the systems have also changed. So these three are actually the phase, the practical exposure, and also the false sense of security are the main three things I see as limitations in not just in Sri Lanka, but also around the world.
Excellent. We'll give the audience an opportunity to ask questions after I finish the rest of the panelists. Just one follow-up. What's the kind of best practice in Sri Lanka in terms of reporting an incident? Are you sort of seeing rapid reporting, or do you see late reporting, or is there a guideline that you will give on financial sector?
So to FinCERT, mainly we were trying to get a mandate done, but so there are limitations on that as well. But there are incidences that is reported now compared to 2014 when the FinCERT was established to now. We see a progress, but I know for a fact what is reported to us officially and what is actually there is a huge gap.
Excellent, thank you. So interesting points. Maybe during the discussion we can sort of dive deep on some of these issues. Moving on to Avanti, actually. Thanks. I mean, the interesting fact is that card fraud losses are estimated to sort of go up to $38 billion by 2027. This is from the Nielsen report. Can I know what Visa is doing in terms of innovation to sort of minimize this kind of fraud, and what has been some of the experience, if possible you can share, initiatives that Visa has taken in terms of technology and security?
Thanks, Nista. So yes, there is a projection that was made in terms of fraud rates, but I'm also pleased to say that we've seen payment frauds hit a downward trend in the recent past. Having said that, it's all because of the efforts made by all our stakeholders in the payments ecosystem. Now, what happens when the payments players kind of strengthen their controls, the fraudsters also innovate. They continue to innovate, they continue to look at new opportunities to get their revenue. So this puts us in a situation where we should always be on the ball when it comes to controls. Now, from Visa's standpoint, we take it very seriously, and we look at, we have a philosophy that looks at security design towards the future. And with this in mind, we've, in 2019, just before the pandemic hit, we launched our future of security roadmap for Sri Lanka, as we did in the rest of the region and rest of the world. And within this framework, we looked at 4 key pillars, which is one in terms of how does Visa use AI, use our tools to monitor and alert our partners in terms of potential fraud. We also looked at how do we kind of build best practices and share them with our partners so that they are ready and they are they build the right controls. So for example, if something happens in, let's say, Sweden or somewhere around the world, we take the best practices out of that and we share it with our partners here in Sri Lanka so that when an attack happens here, they're already ready for it. Secondly, a key focus area for us has been within the security roadmap to ensure that our players align with the global standards. So, for example, things like PCI DSS, EMV standards, adapting 3DS, these are ways where our card issuers and acquirers can protect their business. Thirdly, we've also invested in tools that can be used by our partners. So let our partner be an issuer, a merchant, or an acquirer. There are tools that are, that support them to manage their authorizations, that support them to manage their risk, using again to AI and different forms of algorithms. Then, lastly, but definitely not least, we need to continue to innovate. So that has been our key focus, continue to innovate in terms of how do we manage security? How do we bring in new thinking around security? And this, Nista, has been a winning source for us, I would say, during the pandemic period as well, because Sri Lanka saw the largest boom in e-commerce. And the transformation to digital has been tremendous. But security has been the forefront of that, and we, as our fintech, our finance players, and our partners have been ready to embrace that growth with the tools in place.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'll come back to you as well. A few more questions. Going to Deepal, you have heard all this noise around you in terms of how the disruption as well as the need for convenience as well as security. I mean, as a bank which is trying to sort of manage the pressure of to digitize as well as also on the other side the risks, how is NDB? I know you're fairly aggressive on your digital strategy. How has NB managed these challenges, and what should other enterprises look for in their journey?
Yes, good afternoon and many thanks for the question actually. So I've been hearing about the innovation and all those things. So I mean, of course, yes, NDB is for innovation, but our strategy, because we are a bank, we need customers. So our innovation should be around requirement of the customers as well. So therefore we are doing a lot of innovations, but all those innovations are basically around customer centric requirements. So what we most of the time what we see, what the customer wants. I mean, the era has gone where a bank decide what they can offer and tell the customer to use that. Now the era is to see what the customer wants and whether we could offer that to them or not. So our whole digital strategy, yes, we have a very good digital strategy and we are implementing it in a very expedited manner as well. But our EXCO always asks, is this innovation is required by the customer? Could it assist the customer? So in short, I could say our digital strategy is on two forms. One is internal, because we have to be an efficient bank to provide what the customer requires. Because banking industry, yes, I mean, if you look at the manufacturing industry or other industries have used technology in a big way to get the efficiency. But banking industry, I mean, I have worked in a multinational bank as well. Even in that, there are rules, regulations, practices done by a long time. Therefore, inefficiency is huge. So first, to give what the customer wants, we have to be efficient. So in twofold, we started the journey. First, to make internal bank system efficient. The second is to give externally what the customer requires. So internal side, what we try to do is we saw a lot of legacy, practices, systems, which makes the bankers more internally focused, more trying to reconcile or balance or evaluate things rather than focusing on to give the customer service required. So we automated, I mean, I could say the last 3 years we started this journey, we automated about 60 systems. How did we do that? I mean, all banks, any industry want to automate. Efficiency comes mainly, I mean, yes, you have re-engineering, you have Six Sigma, you have Lean, all those is fine. But automation is the main tool to get the efficiency. But on the other hand, the difficulty we face is changing the core systems. I mean, I know most of those guys here from IT, you know how difficult to change the core system. If you, I saw few vendors here as well who provide systems to us. My fight with them is every day. When I get one fix, about 8 issues get break. So you have to fix that. So that's the IT, you all know, that's the reality. When you change core systems are complicated, legacy systems are complicated, integration is difficult. So what we use is, because the multinational, I think the global practice is also that you don't use a core system now, you use RPAs. RPA is a good end user system which, without changing the legacy system, you can give instruction what the manual person to do with the system. So you are not doing underlying system changes. So therefore, on agile basis, you can deploy systems faster. So these 75 systems we deployed in 3 years, one system would take about 4 to 6 weeks to deploy. I mean, some examples I could say, our all security is monitoring, NPL monitoring. Even when a customer's check is returned, there is a RPA to go and check that, immediately call the customer and inform through a voice recording to tell that your check has returned, please deposit money before 11. And if it doesn't return the money before 11, we will call, RPA will recognize that. So RPA is a very good tool. I know when I was at HSBC, they were using 30,000 RPAs worldwide to automate, because they realize legacy system changes will take them nowhere. Legacy systems is best practices, keep it there, around that RPA. So that is our main success on internal system side. So that gives us the efficiency as well as a reduction of cost. The bank we had in 2018, I can remember our cost to income ratio was about 41%, but today is 33%. Because of these internal automations using RPAs, workflows and things like that. So I think we are the lowest cost income ratio in the industry, all enabled through this automation. And from the external point of view, I mean, if you read global any article or anything like that, the most device customer use now is the phone, mobile phone. Computer internet era is now moving out. It's coming to mobile apps. So we are trying to give everything. Yes, I mean, as Mr. Kumarthunga, I've been working with him a lot. Our payment side, I have worked in several countries in Asia, Japan or Philippines to Indonesia. Our payment systems are in par or more than them. We have SEFT, we have RTGS, very easy to do transactions and everything. So we have an app, but our strategy is, as Mr. Kumarthunga said, to give the customer, because banking is a boring area. Anything, I mean, when you read about banking, what people envisage is banking won't be there in the future because customers will do their own business like through Amazon and all those things. So they don't want to come to the bank. So our vision is to basically provide the customer all the banking activities, what he wants to do, wealth management to trading to, I mean, those are not banking, but wealth management side, everything via the app. So we have developed a single app which contains all the payment related, what central bank has done, RTGS, SEFT, slips, mobile payment, QR, and all those things. In addition, we have now introduced, you can open an account. Because open account has been not coming to the bank, open account has been a big thing because of the KYC. But thanks to Central Bank, in N219 they introduced you can do VKYC. So with that, there is a heap of opportunities open to us. The moment you open the account, now we are going to give a loan. Customer does not have to come to the bank. Now we can give a credit card. Customer does not have to fill forms, go to a salesperson or anything like that. And also the fixed deposit, signing order, anything. So at the moment we have built opening accounts, granting loan, opening fixed deposit, in addition to all those payments, including the QR platform, we have been developing those. So, to basically make the life of our end customers, and they can do anywhere, anytime, banking with us. So I think, I mean, the find I could say, I think Mr. Kumarthunga should know, we have applied for a digital bank the license as well, and it was discussed in the budget 2021, we know. So if it comes, we are ready. We are ready to go that, and we are ready to give an app to our end customer, which they can do any type of banking without coming to a bank. That's our banking strategy, which is being done in the world. If you look at the internet, digital banks are, all the new banks are going as digital banks, or neo banks called in Australia. So that's a step forward we are trying to take. That's why we say the future is banking on NDB.
Thank you. Thanks, Deepal. Question to Jayanta. My question, I know audience has a lot of questions. One question, I'll open it up to the audience. Jayanta, why are we having two cyber security bills, one for cyber command and one for civil? I mean, has any other country done these two different strategies or approaches to ensure country cyber security, or are you following a particular model which has been very successful?
Thanks, Nishta. I think I briefly touched on it in my presentation and mentioned the challenges that came through when the original draft bill was tabled in Cabinet in September 2019, where the then Defense Ministry had some concerns about the defense cyber ecosystem, and for many years the Defense Cyber Command and the strategies associated with it have been mooted quite well in that ecosystem. So in that light, whether there should be two or amalgamation was the debate. So when we look at this, the legal area governing cybersecurity initiative, I also mentioned about the international norms and the standards that have evolved in other subjects. But you see, the international standards in this area and international law in this area is evolving. So there is no specific model per se. Some countries, like larger countries like US or maybe European Union, have got amalgamated models where countries have come together and created it. But those are regional models available. But given the stakeholder discussions we had here, it was agreed eventually that the Defense Cyber Command approach and the Defense Cyber Command legislation, which brings the tri-forces together. And remember, Nishtha, our tri-forces still are governed by their individual statutes. So you have the Air Force Act, Army Act, Navy Act, and the Police Ordinance. 4 separate legislation, and the forces under those legislation coming together into one umbrella. And that is going to be a standalone measure because the defense arena is having a very tight governance regime, and we would like to respect that. In the same way, in the civilian cyber domain, when I say quote-unquote civilian, what we meant was the regulatory interventions coming from the regulators, namely Central Bank, TRCSL, SEC, all of them together, combining their interventions to support the critical information infrastructure to maintain minimum standards. So in that light, what we felt, I mean, this was not our decision, it was a decision taken at the cabinet level with our line ministry secretaries, eventually taking a snapshot of the big picture, agreeing that in the international domain, OECD has come out with a framework for the protection of critical information infrastructure. And that is covering public utilities, banking systems in the context of potential digital banking coming into the system.
That comes under the civil, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And that is what has led to this diversification of this approach rather than combining it to one, taking note of the fact that the Defense Ministry had raised it as a concern, and we are grateful to the Defense Secretary, the current Defense Secretary, who led an initiative to help us sort out the matter to go back to cabinet and take it to the next election.
Yeah, the only concern is that that approach was influenced by what happened in Easter Sunday thing, and then 2-3 years there is a lot of criticism that no one is responsible, and the whole debate, argument goes on. My concern is that if no one has done this two-pronged approach, aren't we complicating the way forward, and whether it will be effective in dealing with emerging threats which are not really here but global threats, right? On cybersecurity, I understand the defense concerns, but enterprise level risk is still at large now.
Yeah, Nishtha, well, let me clarify that. Good question, right? Excellent point of view. Although we have these two legislative models happening, what is also unique in this latest development is that there is a point where the two laws would merge, and that is a unique factor which the legal draftsman's department, the brilliant people there, are working on at present. There is a merger in the event of a national security emergency, law and order situation. There will be a merger of the two frameworks at that point under the umbrella of defense and the others. So, for example, to draw from the example of what Loshan mentioned about FinCert. FinCert was a creation from Sri Lanka CERT in 2011, and the Governor of Central Bank here today was, together with the then Secretary President, launched it in November 2013 as South Asia's first public-private partnership for financial sector cybersecurity ecosystem, threat mitigation and management. And we did that under a governance framework stemming from the Monetary Law Act. So we have all these traditional heritage laws we have inherited. We are struggling against odds. We do not erase and replace Monetary Law Act. We can't do that. We don't have the mandate. So we have to, within the legacy systems, do what is available. And I must commend the legal draftsman department and the team who came up with legislative innovations so that ongoing initiatives like FinCert and potentially the Telco Cert, I know the current Director General TRC is making a pioneering effort to get that also in place. That will be another regional first if you have a Telco Cert. All those initiatives will be working together under the umbrella of the cyber security legislation, where the two, the defense cyber and the other one, would combine in the context of a national security scenario. On your other point about the tragedy that occurred, Nishta, I think we need to get something clear. We must separate the criminal justice aspect. I mentioned this in my presentation. The criminal justice angle to those episodes, right? From the cyber security norms growing internationally, which are administrative measures like what Loshan and them are doing, or Sri Lanka CERT boys and girls are doing at present, and the Defense Cyber Command people also doing at present. When it comes to criminal justice, law enforcement interventions can't happen in isolation. What happened in that example is, for the first time in this region, the Budapest Convention emergency procedures were invoked, and we had joint investigations carried out where digital evidence from a variety of international service providers were brought in with the participation of international law enforcement agencies coming together and getting the details of the eventual culprits. But translating that into a formal indictment and a court proceeding, we all know, would take time. So the two things needs to be understood in a different context. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Interesting. Very progressive ideas and lots of clarity in terms of the way forward. I'd like to invite the audience to pose some questions to our eminent panelists here before we break up for lunch. There's some time, so please. Who wants to take a few questions first? We had insights from FinCert, actually, some suggestions as well as from Visa in terms of how they're combating this menace of credit card theft and fraud. And of course from Jayanth and NDB coming out with their own case study of how they have got the transformation going. Any questions to our panelists in terms of challenges, or do you sort of agree with them, what they said, or disagree? I know Loshan came with lots of controversial opinions in terms of what's wrong with on this side of the fence. Any questions? Yes. I said in the morning it has to be a two-way communication so that we can get the effective outcome from this summit. Yes, please.
Hi. Wanted to just build on the fact that patching and mitigating these vulnerabilities is taking a large amount of time, both from the bank perspective and from FinCert. To address that, is there any way that maybe legislation on regulation can help to maybe enforce things like SLAs on vendor patch management, or maybe even the vendor selection process can be tweaked so that we select vendors who can develop and patch products in a more agile manner and quicker, so that we can protect ourselves faster, because banks aren't development companies, and obviously they can't depend on their own guys developing the patches, and they have to depend on the vendors.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
So, okay, when we are looking at 2040, when the FinCESET was established, so The patching was actually done on ad hoc basis, and also whenever there is a large ha-hoo about an incident. But today, if you look at daily, in a daily basis itself, critical ones that are issued as patches and everything, FinCZ is distributing to the entire financial sector. And that is just from the FinCZ side. And if you look at what are the available threat intelligences that there are, I think banks are also now have multiple sources, not just FinCZ, they are also having their own threat feeds, and also there are multiple vendors who's providing these threat intelligences. So they are actually getting to know these things beforehand, or else just as it's happening, they get to know. And because of that, they are now proactively doing all the patches. Yes, there may be one person who's getting troubled by infection or as a troubled by an attack, but that actionable in threat is taken out and shared, not just sometimes in Sri Lanka, but also foreign threats. Now we are a member of APCERT, Asian Pacific CERT, so they also send us, and also we have connections with Nordic FinCZ, Italy FinCZ, Russia, and also US certs as well. So they give us information, also we share with them without any confidential information. We share the actionable threat intel. So that allows everyone to have not just the patching. Let's say we have legacy systems and it takes time. As soon as you understand that there is a significant time and there are significant limitations, most people, they contact us, or else they contact their principal vendors directly and see what are the controls that they can put in place until that get rectified, or until an official patch comes in. What are the things that we can do? For example, if I take the WannaCry incident, Friday night or else Saturday morning around 3 a.m. it was it got started infecting the entire world. But by 6 a.m., I and my assistant manager back in that time, we ensured everyone was awake. We called them, we called, if not the POC 1, we called the POC 2, if not, we called someone in the bank or the finance company. We got them woke up, and by 8 a.m. when the banks are starting at 8:30, we made sure like at least the basic actions are taken. And by like 11, we got to know about like it is SMB1 protocol that is being infected. We got them to ensure that patch is that is disabled, because there was no patch at that moment. By 3 or 4 p.m. In the same day, we got to know, okay, there is a patch. We ensured everyone test it beforehand and apply it. So there is a time frame for the testing and apply, but still the basic security controls are in place, so they can at least do the businesses until the relevant patch is being deployed. So that's how I think us as FinCZ, SLCERT, and also various other vendors in the MSSPs and all help the banks, finance companies, and all other companies to become more secure.
Yeah, just so that, I mean, I could add few things, because the technology, I mean, the IT security side has got advanced, so much. I mean, I could say 15 years ago, if you look at the IT security, the budget of the total IT cost is about 5%, but it has become, I mean, present, it's about 40%. So you have to invest on IT security to get the best. So, I mean, as I said, so what our practice is, I mean, I think each bank practicing, I think same things. So now the security, perimeter security is security within your area where someone can't come from out. 15 years ago, you will have one defense system, like a firewall or firewall, something like that. But now it has gone to layered defense system. So you have three, you have a web application firewall, you have a normal firewall, then you have a firewall called sandbox and things like that. And interestingly, because as he said, vendors immediately advise, they know. When a new threat comes, we'll get the patch immediately. So what the banks are now doing is, when you have three-layered defense system, some go to 4. What we do is we buy these 4 layers from 4 different vendors. So if one vendor misses to advise that patch to get it done, okay, vulnerability there, at least the other vendor will tell. But the latest technology is now we are implementing is basically called sandbox technology. So it won't work on a specific attack, because as an example, today threat comes with some kind of attack. IBM gets delays to identify and release the patch. But what this sandbox technology does is, they will analyze the data, underlying data pattern in that. If that data pattern is unusual, if it's not a pattern normally bank gets, it will move into an AI system, and from there it will analyze and say, this is an attack. So that level of defense systems are there in the IT security world. Without someone advising, there are AI tools also to understand the underlying data bits, bytes, and see whether this is a normal pattern or not, and block. Only thing is, you need money. So our budget of security has increased so much. At least 45% of our IT budget is on security. Because as a financial industry, you have to give what the customer wants, but as much as that, we have to keep their data secure. So we have to invest on those, and we keep on investing, I think, all banks.
Thank you. So security is not cheap. There's some few questions here. Yes.
My question is to Loshan again.
Yeah.
Just wanted to get your thoughts, because you're part of the cybersecurity professionals as well in terms of ISACA. What is in your assessment, the skill gap? Because we have a lot of undergraduates now following cybersecurity degrees. This is a question we get asked a lot. What are their career paths? How do you mature in an organization in terms of cybersecurity? So I just wanted to gather your observations and thoughts on that as well.
Well, okay, so from recruiter's point, as well as from a person who has been working with all the universities on cybersecurity. So there is a skill gap. Yes, we have a lot of people coming out of the universities with cybersecurity degrees, but they have the theoretical knowledge, or else they know what is security is, but the problem is they don't have the practical exposure, and also technical exposure as well. So for that, I think from 2 years back, I have started with the ISACA to make sure that there is a mentorship program for Catch the Flag, that is like hacking. It's ethical hacking. So that sort of initiatives we have started with ISACA, and also I know there are a lot of SLASCOM, SLCert, and also there are a lot of people now trying to build this gap, but there is a gap. If you take people who came from with a mixture of IT and security, they understand the practical exposure of it. But if you are a person who's purely on security, and that is also if you are a person who has been in the corporate sector or else the banking sector, they only have limited access to these practical exposures. When you are in the consultancy, or else when you are in the engineer sides, then you have a lot of assessments going on, a lot of technical exposure, and also if you take FinCISR itself, so we have separate research labs, and also we do a lot of new technology researches. So with these, we build a lot of exposure and all that. But it's not the same. So out of the 1,000 people who actually graduate each year, only like 5% have the access to a lot of technical exposures. So that is, I mean, like I as an individual, and also I know a lot of people who are keen, like who are security professionals who have been contributing to the sector, are keen on developing these people, and they are affiliating with different universities to ensure like these people are getting attention. They see the practical side of it, and that's how we are trying to build the gap. But yes, there is a lot of gap that needs to be. It's not the knowledge. It's not theoretical knowledge, but it's the practical exposure that is lacking in the industry.
Thank you. I'd like to get some questions from the back. Need to sort of shake you up. No one had a data theft recently? Any issues? We have a panel here in terms of the effectiveness of what's being spoken about. Anyone?
I don't think that is something that they would tell publicly.
Generalize it, yeah, I don't know. Okay, in the interest of time, I will ask the panel actually to, I know a lot of ideas were shared. What should be the way forward in ensuring a more secure new normal that we talk? So I'd like the maybe start from Jayanta to really one key take that you want the audience to remember in ensuring that the new normal will be more secure than what it was before. Just a final remarks from each of the panelists. Short ones, yeah.
Yeah. That's a long question, I think.
Yes, I know.
We'll try to keep it brief.
Yeah.
So I think
lunch is waiting. That's why I'm keeping it brief.
Thank you, Nishta. I think it has been a tremendous panel, and thanks for putting this together. In the context of new normal, in the post-pandemic era, I think we will have both opportunities and challenges. And I think the tremendous wave of opportunity that can accrue to citizens at large and also businesses through new and novel technology interventions, including digital banking and the various classes of crypto or virtual asset options will pave perhaps greater opportunity for inward remittances in Sri Lanka. However, we need to convey a clear message. All opportunities would have challenges. We need to be ready to meet those challenges. And in that context of creating trust and confidence for the consumers to facilitate greater adoption, the key message is that the data protection bill is now done, cybersecurity is next in line, and while the central bank and others work towards amending the Monetary Law Act and the payment systems and the exchange control regulations, we need to have that consumer trust built up so that the adoption will happen. And for that purpose, all stakeholders needs to come together to work with government and private sector to set up the institutional framework such as the Data Protection Authority going forward. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks. Kumar Tunga?
Yeah, I think so we'll take this opportunity to say something about this press release, about the earlier discussions.
Okay.
So this is Central Bank of Sri Lanka. We issued the press release on 21st April. So there is no regulatory safeguard related to the usage, investment or dealing in VCs in Sri Lanka. So therefore, investing or use in VCs in Sri Lanka pose significant risks such as users, investors will have no regulatory or specific legal recourse in event of any use or transaction related to the issues of disputes, and high volatility of the value of the VCs as it is dependent on speculation, exposing the investment of VCs to a risk making large losses, and high likelihood of VCs being associated in financial terrorist activities. And FIU is also inform us and CID is also informed us who is dealing these activities directly to us. And violating foreign exchange regulations, so that is also there, and I am requesting all of you use your digital and as maximum as possible, because we have introduced and Lanka Clear and also the banking industry invest a lot for the digital payment ecosystem in Sri Lanka. So therefore, while using your mobile phone for the other activities, use your mobile phone to make digital payments. Thank you.
Thanks. Deepal, quick one from you. Oh, yeah.
This thing I'll make it quick. But one thing, from the banking side, I could say, yes, we could make our systems secure as possible. Like, having firewalls and all those things. But I explained that it's so much into it, we can invest and get it done. But the most important thing is the customer awareness. Customers also should know that awareness should be there all over to secure their password, secure their token and all those things. Because if that is compromised, how much ring fence or parameter security we put in the banking side will go waste. One example, biggest hacking incidents in Sri Lanka, I haven't touched wood experience much. The biggest hacking incidents I have experienced in overseas is takeover of customer computers. Hackers will take over the customer computer. They will send instructions to the bank just as the customer. They will fraudulently get the signature and act as the customer. And all these frauds happens on the last day of the working day in the evening. They know RM will go all out to assist the customer. They will push the RM, which is the relationship manager, saying this is the important transaction. You have to send it before the weekend. Instructions have sent. RM will send. It will go to Turkey or Iran or somewhere. You will never able to recover the money back. So customer awareness is as important as the security systems which banks implement.
Thanks.
That's
Avanti,
my message. Yeah.
Thanks.
So Nisa, I believe that if we have learned anything from this pandemic, it's that the new normal is going to bring out lots of new innovations. Innovation is going to be inevitable, and innovation is going to be inevitable from the ecosystem players, and innovation is going to be inevitable from the fraudsters' sides as well. So if I am to think of what steps we should take in the new normal, it would be to continuously assess our market, ensure that we know what's happening, we understand what the requirements are, and we address those. And then we also look at what are the enablers that will drive payments or drive transactions, and then those will fall in the categories of, let's say, like how Deepal mentioned, consumer demands. What do they need, and addressing that. Then also looking at security, which is a very key factor when we look at the banking and finance industry, ensuring that we create trust in the security system. And lastly, definitely not least, it's to tap into global experiences and knowledge to ensure that we build ourselves up, we bring in those best practices, we build in those standards to ensure that we don't make some of the mistakes that other markets have done, and we also take in the positives that they've done as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Roshan.
Yeah, so I have two advices. One is for the banking or else all the companies and the business leaders, where adopt new technology, keep adopting, and also ensure the security is not the last thing that you look at, but the first thing that you'll be looking at. Get the idea itself, get the security involved, and ensure the final product or else the final stages, it is carried down with the involvement security. And for the security guys, my advice is being paranoid is good, but don't become wall for the innovation. You have to be supportive of the innovations, not be the stumbles that breaks down the innovation and also becomes the actual threat to the business itself.
Thank you. Excellent. We covered a lot, and thank you very much. I think we went beyond our time, but I think it was interesting. I hope the audience also found it very useful. Thank you for keeping it interactive with some of the questions. Please give a round of applause to the panel, eminent panel, and I'll hand over to our host to the formalities.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nisar Kasim, for moderating a wonderful panel discussion. I think the panelists deserve a great round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And I think we could all agree to say that it was a very productive panel discussion. And as you all are representing so many companies and corporates today, you all are the ones to take this message into your organizations. And what's important is putting all of them into action. So thanking you all also for bearing up and taking all the information which is important. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are now ready to give the tokens of appreciation to the panelists today. And I first of all invite the Group Director, CEO of CICRA Holdings, Mr. Bhushan Dayaratna, to present the tokens of appreciation to the speakers we had this morning in our morning session. And first of all, we would like to present our token of appreciation to the Senior Director, Corporate Strategy, Visa Asia Pacific, Mr. Akash Devwekar. Since he is not here with us, I would like to invite Ms. Avanti Kolambage to accept the token of appreciation on behalf of Akash. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Bhushan to present the token of appreciation to our guest speaker, Director Sri Lanka CERT and General Counsel for ICTA, Mr. Jayanta Fernando. Thank you, Bhushan. And to present the tokens of appreciation to the panelists today, I would like to invite the Group Executive Director, CICRA Holdings, Mr. Vasana Vikramasena, on stage. And first of all, we would like to present the token of appreciation to the Assistant Governor, CBSL, Mr. D. Kumara Tunga. Thank you so much for your contribution today. And next, I invite the COO in DB, Mr. Deepal Akuretiagama, to accept the token of appreciation. And next, I would like to invite the country head, Sri Lanka Maldives Visa, Ms. Avanti Kolambage, to accept the token of appreciation. And finally, I invite Manager FinCERT Lanka Clear Private Limited, Mr. Loshan Vikramasena, to accept the token of appreciation. Thank you so much. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you to the panelists. And shall we all give a good round of applause to the moderator of the morning session, CEO of Daily FT, Mr. Nisar Kasim. Thank you. Thank you. With that, ladies and gentlemen, the much awaited moment, which is the lunchtime. I hope everyone's awaiting that. And this was a very productive and effective conversation during the morning session of banking, payments and settlements and digital currencies. And just like I said before, I hope all of you will take the messages and the information to your corporates and implement them. With that, we will break for lunch now. And we will meet again by 2:15, if we could make it, by 2:15 back to the hall. The lunch buffet is arranged at the foyer area, which you all had tea in the morning. So enjoy your lunch and be back on time for the second session today. Thank you. Have a good lunch.
Now that I think about it, there were a few signs. Something was not right. But I couldn't quite put my finger on it.
whole series of bugs are affecting the principal transport networks and several major computer systems this morning. A number of international airports have been closed as a precaution for the...
Take your coat, grab your...
Further information about what seems to be a global IT crisis have been confirmed.
Sudden access to confidential data of many large companies has plunged global
into the red this morning, causing panic across the financial markets.
This could very well be the worst hacking in the history of the world. While many IT systems are not functioning this morning, paralyzing cities around the world, we have heard reports...
New revelations in the Kelly Adams scandal following the publication of a private email.
Teenagers all over the world are shocked to see their idol in such...
I can care less about Kelly Adams, to be frank. And anyway, it was high time to go to work.
Your estimated time is approximately 8 days and 45 minutes. Would you stop your guns if I had you on my side? Come and steal your blade till the end of my desire.
Yes, the industrial security of this site cannot be assured today. We've therefore taken some exceptions.
Video surveillance systems are down, so they had to stop all subway activity for now.
Say the world is going through the worst IT crisis ever. Marie?
What we're experiencing right now really comes down to sudden and complete lack of cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity? I mean, there's a firewall on my computer, there's a password on my phone, I had it covered. And I had so much more on my plate.